Right. Thank you very much, Steve, and Sheikh Yusuf. Thank you very much for a very comprehensive view of all the challenges that you rightly mentioned that we are all sharing. Your deep insight had certainly been a real good experience for me as well. Steve, thank you very much. I'll go into a little bit of different direction from the one set by Sheikh Yusuf, and I'll probably start with a small introduction of who we are as a port and as a free zone. SOHAR is located in the north of Oman. It's one of the largest growing ports in the world. It's a 50-50 joint venture between the government of Sultanate of Oman and the port of Rotterdam. We operate as a landlord model, slightly different than what Sheikh Yusuf had mentioned earlier about what they are doing in his port. The port is 22 kilometers in area. All of that area is fully occupied with industries. Adjacent to it, about 6 kilometers away, is the free zone, which stands at 45 kilometers. We're developing free zone as many other free zones in phases. So we had completed the first phase of about 450 hectares and mostly occupied as well. The beauty of what we have, or the competitiveness of what we have, is that both the port and the free zone is managed by one entity. So there's always a seamless connection and much larger value proposition to our tenants and our investors. So why would people come and choose us, apart from being able to offer very competitive and rather cheap energy rates? We also have recently introduced solar parks into our offerings for energy. We also benefit from very competitive and tax-friendly regime. So, for example, no import tax, no export tax, maximum 25 years tax holiday, no income tax, and there is no restriction or repatriation of money. So apart from energy, third element, which is a very much valued element by our tenants, according to all the surveys that we have, which is the stability of the government in the Sultanate of Oman. We are organized in clusters. The clusters that we have are 5 clusters. We have the logistics cluster, and in the logistics we have some of the renowned operators in the world. So we have Hutchison operating our port, our container terminals, oil tanking operating our oil terminal or liquid terminal, and C. Stanwich operating our general cargo terminals. We have a petrochemical cluster. A lot of industries are there. SOHAR is renowned as the capital in Oman for petrochemical industries. Metals like iron steel, iron bars, Valley is one of the names that's there, but also we have Jindal Shadid and others. We also have the food sector, which had been playing a great part in the facing of the pandemic. We also have our utility sector to produce energy, seawater intakes, and so on. We have no restrictions when it comes to marine side. With the deep water jetties that we have, we can handle valley maxes of 400,000 tons, and also the world's largest ships as well. So that's in a nutshell we have. I will go a little bit onto Oman and what are we also experiencing in Oman is a huge focus on logistics as one of the pillars of diversification of the economy away from oil. Luckily, our government have started the initiative, especially it will come handy during those times in particular. In Oman, the whole of logistics is organized through having one logistic plan or strategy for the whole of Oman. The responsibility of implementation is granted to a group company, which is called SIAD, or Oman Global Logistics Company. It's basically a government-owned company that gathers all the logistic assets within the country under one umbrella, with one strategy implementation plan and huge value propositions to offer. It has some companies underneath that. With those efforts, we have been ranked as #1 in GCC trading across borders index. This is according to the. We have also seen an increase in cargo by 12% in the throughput year on year in 2019. 20% of pre-clearance of goods, which also very effective, especially during the times of the pandemic.
Sorry, Omar, to interrupt. Can you just go back over the last 2 minutes, because certainly here in the UK and other places we lost some sound, and apologies for that, because I know you were in full train, but if you could please just go back a little bit so that we get the full benefit.
Right, thank you. This slide talk about what Oman is doing in terms of improving the logistics sector. So Oman had gathered all the government had gathered all the assets that it had invested in, which is about more than 17 assets under one group company or a holding company, which is called SIAD, Oman Logistic Group, and they are responsible for the implementation of the SOLS strategy, or Sultanate of Oman Logistics Strategy. With that effort, we had seen a huge increase in the efficiency and also in the competitiveness of the sector and the connectivity, which had played a huge part in us being able to face the pandemic in the way that we are now. So we've ranked #1 in GCC with this is according to the latest report from the World Bank. Cargo throughput had increased by 12%, and we've seen
Yeah, Omar, I think we're getting some more gremlins. I don't know if you can still hear us.
Steve, actually, it's happening the same from my side. I'm also witnessing exactly what you're witnessing. Just to tell you, it's not only from London, but it seems maybe okay. Rosie, is it the same? Is it the same from your side?
Sorry, I just
okay, let's try again, Omar. I know we have a few gremlins.
Apologies.
It seems.
Yeah.
So do you think you want to recommend to Omar perhaps to switch off the video? Maybe that helps.
Okay. Let me try once more, and if that doesn't improve, then I'll switch it off, and maybe Rosie, you have my presentation, so you also can stream it from there.
Yes, I'll do that.
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly then share some key statistics when it comes to SOHAR Port and Freezone. So this is last year statistics. The total investment that we have managed to attract in both the port and the free zone is around 28 billion USD. Last year, the calls into our port were more than 3,100. The tonnage that we are seeing is increasing year on year, and that's going steadily, with last year reaching 62 million tons of throughput. That's almost equivalent to 1 million every week. So that's quite a significant number for us. In the free zone, we have more than 200 plus companies. More than 91 hectares are fully occupied and being leased. We also seen a lot of development when it comes to the investments in warehousing, and all of those are proving handy at the time of the pandemic. I will then go on and try to get to the core of this presentation, and talking about the key challenges that we're seeing, and also the opportunities after that. I'll just pause here in case the sound is clear, or is it not clear? Steve, are you okay in London? Yeah, all right.
Yeah, you're all good so far, Omar. Well done.
All good here.
All right, thanks. Yeah. Right. So the key challenges, the angle that I took this from is rather than looking at the typical port challenges, I was trying to spin this a little bit more towards what we're going to see, or what we are witnessing in the economical scene as such. I think the port challenges are pretty much similar. Are there going to be any changes to the supply chain? Are there going to be changes to the vessel sizes? Are we going to see more stringent approaches from customs and health authorities and so on? My view is that when it comes to challenges, we are part of an ecosystem, and the ecosystem also is very uncertain. And while I'm writing all those, kind of try to gather my thoughts, I was more or less thinking of a crystal ball that I'm holding in my hand and trying to gaze through. So see economical slowdown coming for sure. All the latest reports are indicating that, whether it's the investment bankers, whether it's the World General reports from entities which are interested in this. So economical slowdown, I think there will be lower demand in the GCC region, and that will also mean less cargo to be imported or exported. I think the true effect of that will probably start once the pandemic is over. Lower government spending. We have seen all governments in the region announcing budget cuts with no exceptions. That is also on the back of another economical issue, which is the lower oil prices that we are witnessing. Means that also there are less infrastructure projects that the governments will be spending on. As we know, Middle East and GCC in particular, is the economy is government driven, and this will definitely have an effect on the economical environment. That also means that there could be a high cost of funding for the projects, and which also means that we could witness a delay in some of the expansion projects that we are having and we have announced. Hopefully that can be mitigated through financial instruments, but it's one to watch out and to manage as well. I think we are all experiencing some delay in investment decisions. Everybody is holding tight to their cash, everybody is holding tight to their equity, and it's a natural reaction for everybody at this stage. However, since we are also attracting investors, we see that as a challenge, but also it could be an opportunity in other sectors. When it comes to opportunities, see opportunities when it comes to business anchorage. This is perhaps one would say it's contrary to the previous challenge that we're seeing, but I think there's a huge potential when it comes to critical sectors, such as pharma and food, that we will see local manufacturing. This is basically on the back of securing supplies and both pharmaceuticals and food are becoming now huge national security issues in many of the countries. So I think they will be less importing and more of, if you like, local manufacturing of goods and so on. Here, just to give a highlight, with food, the GCC countries actually import 70% of their food needs. That's a huge percentage when it comes to the fact that also your supply chains are heavily disturbed with India under lockdown, with also trucking movement under lockdown. That was a big struggle for all GCC countries. We all have managed through having direct importing, but I think it's a hard lesson for every country in the region. So hopefully we see more of investments in that sector. The other opportunity is also, I think there could be a move towards de-risking the current supply chain. And this is also a global trend. And I've just listed here some of the kind of scenarios that people and experts are knocking about. So mega hubs versus national hubs. The national kind of theme is moving around in all over the world. So instead of having large distribution centers on the back of intermodal options, probably we could see more of inventory accumulation at certain countries according to their needs. Also, it means that just in time is under review by many companies, large companies, and also by many large countries. And it's giving rise to what is called now just in case. I think that's to me, it's a bit of a long run theme. I don't think we will see it immediately, simply because the investment there that is required to be done will take at least 2 to 3 years. So I think people will try to manage with more transparency in the supply chain, and then later on move into a more national hub, if you like. It also gives rise to more emphasis on port-centric logistics. So ports, I think, will be playing a different role altogether when it comes to logistics. We'll see a lot of activities happening at that front when it comes to packaging, repackaging, importing, exporting, adding value, and getting it into the country at the port side. Also, probably a lot of countries or a lot of companies will have some, maybe port operators will have some of their own inventory stocks that they will be trading in as part of the port-centric logistics, simply because it is crucial and beneficial. Direct importing and further focus on intermodal options. I think we're already witnessing that. So in GCC, it had started almost 2 years back with a lot of focus on having more shipping lines going direct. There's a lot of competition in the region for that. Also, it's obvious that the whole region was also spending heavily on expansions of ports, and I think the utilization, the last report I looked at by Drury probably last year, was the utilization is around 60% or 65% of those assets. So huge capacity when it comes to infrastructure, but also there's a huge competition on importing directly, and I think we will see probably some interesting movements when it comes to prices of cargo and shipments. But let's watch and see that space. Trade facilitation, I think all countries are now easing up when it comes to doing business. I'll cite a few examples here in Oman where we have seen immediate relaxation of requirements on paperwork when it comes to custom clearances and so on, because as part of the measures that we're taking towards the pandemic, there was huge kind of movement towards less paper transactions. For example, newspapers printing was stopped right from the very beginning. Similarly, dealing with cash has been discouraged quite a lot. And this had benefited us because now we're seeing more movements from authorities, customs and so on to accept digital documentation. I think this will see further emphasis going forward, and I think it's an opportunity for all of us to capitalize on. The final part, which I would like also to talk about, is the role of the port itself. And I think I could see or support a movement toward more advanced digital solutions in the port. Ports are just moving away from being traditional box movers. Had been a movement that's been going on for a while, but I think with the pandemic, it will be accelerated. More supply chain transparency, I think, will be offered, and improvement of integration between different parties, platforms, and operations. Hopefully, will take away some of the silos that this industry is experiencing. So more transparency between operators, between BSOs and forwarders will be, I think, a kind of opportunity for us to take forward. I think things like centralized view of container status, content-wise as well, trying to manage all of that is not a difficult task anymore, because you have a lot of investments that had been done in technology. So everybody's talking about DSNs, everybody's talking about 5Gs and all of those technologies. I think we'll just see further development in that, or more focused development, if you like. All in all, this is what I see as the opportunities. I will stop here, and apologies for the bad connection. Happy to go over any bits that you have missed, but I'll hand over back to you, Steve. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Omar, and yeah, thanks for persisting with the gremlins that we often get in these situations. I mean, we're trying to cover it on a global basis, so it's no real surprise. I just wanted to pick up on one thing that you mentioned there, and that's the relaxation of paperwork, which one would have thought is going to be a good thing. But is there a drop-off in terms of the number of clients that are able to use digitalization, or is everyone able to go straight from paper to digitalization without an issue? And I suppose linked to that, if they can't, is there a security issue?
You're quite right in your question, Steve. Initially, there was a little bit of resistance from some of the stakeholders that we have. However, the good part is that this was driven by government authorities. So everybody then thought, okay, it's up to the extent where actually some of the government authorities are fine with certificate of origins being sent on WhatsApp. This was absolutely not being think of if it wasn't for the pandemic. So as they say, never waste a good crisis, and I think it's an opportunity for everybody here to jump on that. It's going to be interesting to see. It's an arm wrestling, isn't it? I mean, security and ease of doing business shouldn't be, but unfortunately, people are perceiving it this way. So it's going to be interesting to see whether this can stick, or whether people will immediately adapt to old ways once they go back to their offices.